Welcome to the Kwazzie
Hi,
show.
Marianne.
How are
Oh,
you, Mary? Hi.
do the proper intro. Yeah, that's right.
Welcome to the Kwazzie show. This is Marianne. Hello, Mary.
Hi, Marianne. I kind of
You're so
quick off
excited
the mark.
about you're so
Quick
excited
off
about
the mark.
today's show because it's all about resistance, and you've been wanting to dive on this all week. So,
Yeah.
a
Oh,
resistance is the golden light of life, isn't it?
the golden light of life.
I don't know
Yeah.
how
Well,
I just came up
I
with
don't
that.
know. I don't know. Sometimes I see resistance as the tiny little speck on the horizon that I really don't want to look at. Um, yeah.
But
And
when
when
it's
we
big resistance, the bigger the resistance, the bigger the breakthrough, the bigger the mastery.
Indeed, indeed. And when we're starting to prepare for this, I was explaining to you how I've was playing with resistance when I recognized I was holding resistance. And after our last podcast the other day, I started exploring resistance and realized that I was resisting life. Wow.
Yeah, and a lot of people do. Um, that's a big
Yeah,
word, Mary. Life.
it is a big word. And I was resisting living. Now, I'm not going to tell you that I've got it all worked out in a couple of days, because now I'm aware of how much living I'm resisting. I've got some things to get on with, but it is interesting. You can get yourself in a bubble of um, protection, I suppose. It felt like,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Fear of moving forward, fear of moving on, fear of failure, fear of loneliness, fear of I'm not going to make it, fear of all of those things. Yeah, I get that.
yeah, yeah, resisting making decisions. And because when you make decisions, there's change that happens, and dynamics shift. Yeah,
I
but
know.
what are the alternatives? If we resist living, what happens?
Exactly. I was having this really juicy conversation with a friend of mine, Liz, in New Zealand the other day about it. And it's about, the more we can just focus our attention on the positive aspects of life and get into that flow of those feelings. Like, I remember when I showed you a few years ago the mind map I created, where there's a line in the middle of the page saying I'm okay, and everything below is resistance, trying to protect ourselves, control everything, anger, fear, shame,
Yeah,
guilt. It's all the ego. And above the line is all the positive aspects: freedom, joy, wealth, health, abundance, appreciation, acknowledgement, all those juicy, gorgeous, uplifting parts of ourselves that we can tap into.
yeah, and you're spot on. And I was referring to that the other day when we were exchanging messages about recognizing my higher self, which I hadn't tapped into for a really long time. I was sitting below the line that we had spoken about, and not trusting my higher self, that my higher self will know what's right for me and help me to um, map my way through any changes and new opportunities when I stop resisting and start embracing.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I had a discussion with someone this morning about that very thing, and it was the difference between living in the body, which is the soul, the higher self, the part of us that is so grounded and solid, where I discussed with you this morning about I'm the meaning of my life. It's that part, I'm enough. And opposed to living in the mind, the head is full of lies. The head is full of beliefs and thoughts that don't even belong to
Mm.
us. So don't trust your mind, trust your body.
Mm. Right. Yes. Okay. That brings me right back to where I was just yesterday, when my body was racking with pain from the resistance that I'd felt.
Yes. And that's
Yeah.
where all sickness comes from, when people live in resistance, live in fear. You know, Abraham Hicks, the law of attraction expert lady, Esther Hicks and Jerry Hicks, she channels Abraham, and it's all about that opposite of resistance. And just trust your body. Your body will tell you everything. And she says there's no such thing as sickness, just the brain telling the body, just the brain expressing guilt and fear in some way, resistance in some way, which then, if it's not addressed, will manifest as dis-ease in the body.
Right.
Which is emotional disorder.
Yep.
So just listen to the body. Whatever the body's telling you is the truth.
Yeah. Sometimes I don't like what my body's telling me at all.
Why is that?
Well, I don't know about you, Marianne, but I've noticed that my body's getting a little bit older. So where does that fit in? And I feel like I'm opening up a whole can of worms here now.
You're 50. It's, for goodness sake, your body is only a representation of the judgment you have on it.
Yeah, yeah. I am embracing age. I do enjoy the aging process. It's just every now and then it catches me off guard, and I think, oh goodness.
Yeah. It's just judgment, Mary. I mean, I know exactly what you're saying, and I'll go back to Esther Hicks when she did the experiment between the two people that she put through the weight loss experiment. They were 30 kgs overweight, and one got the dietitian, the gym, all of those things, and the other one did nothing but said, I love you to the body every day. And the one that said, I love you to the body every day lost more weight than the other guy. So how you see yourself or speak to yourself in flow and love and appreciation, as we know, beauty is an inside job, love is an inside job, happiness is an inside job. So forget about what's going on out there. Get inside the self and start, remember when we did Avatar, and there was the Avatar exercise to connect into the body and love the body and thank the body.
Yeah.
Well, the body will actually improve with age and change when you start giving it attention, but positive attention, not negative attention.
Yeah, you've got me thinking about this. I don't know if I saw this Four Corners program on Australian television a couple of nights ago, Monday night. It was horrifying. It's all about cosmetic surgery and the age. Look, cosmetic surgery is a choice for some people. That's fine, and for some people it's a necessity after breast cancer or something like that. But this was talking about unqualified businesses providing cosmetic surgery to our young women, and the question that it raises is exactly that: why are the body image and why are the fears of our young people so pronounced, or why are we as a society valuing aesthetic beauty over the inner beauty, or accepting our bodies just as they are, that these young girls are putting themselves through quite, in some stages, quite brutal.
And the 18, 19, 20, it's disgraceful.
23, yeah, 18, 19, 20, 23.
Well, what are their parents teaching them? Where are their parents? I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, we're not teaching them, and we're not talking about it enough, is exactly what you were just saying then, that we need to be giving the body positive affirmation, and we need to be teaching our young people very early that they can tell themselves that they love themselves, that they appreciate themselves, that they're in gratitude for the parts of how their body works, why it works as well as it does, instead of resisting the way that we look and buying into the myth of beauty.
Yeah. So here's another way of looking at it. You know, when we talk about I'm enough, and then I dropped into that really deep place yesterday when I went through my own another awakening from another eclipse, I'm sure of it, about I'm the meaning of my life. So if these So it just shows just how many people
Yeah.
are craving to belong or feel in their bodies. The selfie queens and all of these people aren't even embodying themselves, you know. And I notice when I go and play and have a few drinks, I get into take a photo. So, you know, it's like, oh no, that one's terrible. Oh, I can't have that one. And
you got to get the photo right.
Yes. What are we doing to ourselves?
What are we doing? And another little quote that I saw someone put up on Facebook or somewhere the other day was, if all the women in the world suddenly began to love themselves, how many businesses would no longer exist?
Exactly.
Wow.
Let's take a short break. This is great. Back in a moment. Welcome back. Hey, Mary.
Okay. Hey.
So,
well,
yeah.
Wound it up pretty tight there for a bit. Resistance.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about how to embrace resistance to get to the light, because through all resistance is a golden nugget, you know, is a great gem, a great awakening, a great present waiting, because it's when you're in flow, it's great. So we could say resistance is the shadow.
Yeah. We've been talking a little bit about the shadow, haven't we? And resistance is, I guess this feeds into shadow, a really powerful creator. What we resist persists. And you shared a video with a group of us recently, Marianne, about the shadow and how...
Yeah, Debbie Ford, the shadow, she did the shadow effect. Please watch it on YouTube. It will blow your mind. Anyone out there who's judgmental about others, who doesn't suggest that they have anything wrong with them, the massive narcissistic traits that we all share is the biggest epidemic of unhappiness in the planet. So it is the disease of humanity. And as soon as we own the shadow, which is the parts of us that we resist in others or ourselves, and recognize that we're all the same, and to forgive ourselves and to move through it and embrace the parts of us that are angry, sad, deceitful, happy, all the negative parts.
All the negative parts, and embrace them as a learning tool, an opportunity to become who you want to be.
Grow.
Actually, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Identify who you're really being by embracing who you really don't want to be.
Yeah. And it's fantastic. I did something the other day that was just miraculous. I was investigating a part of the shadow from my old addictive days, and it was about when I used to take drugs. And I asked myself, I was watching because I just watched the movie again, and I was watching that part of myself that would go and buy a bag of cocaine. And it was when I was in an intimate relationship or something like that. And so, we're talking about a pretty interesting way of dealing with intimacy. I had this big fear of intimacy. So I had to be drunk or high to be in an intimate relationship, because what I was noticing when I looked at the shadow is I was avoiding feeling worthless. And why I was avoiding feeling worthless is because I was sexually abused as a child, so that made me feel worthless. So the shame of that, and not actually looking at it from that viewpoint, I actually fully understood in that moment why I needed to not feel or I wanted to feel bulletproof or safe or okay with myself. And for those that have not had cocaine before, cocaine is makes you feel like you're bulletproof and beautiful. It doesn't alter your mind that much. It just makes you feel really good. right? And so, and I realised, wow, because she was talking about her cocaine addiction, and I recognised that part, and I thought, wow, all that time I was covering up. And I'm working with somebody at the moment who's I'm coaching through her cocaine addiction, and what an amazing lady. And she, we were talking about recovery versus uncovering. And I said, if you look at recovery, I never went into any sort of recovery program because I didn't want to affirm I was an addict. I just knew that was just an identity I was performing. And so I said to her, she's an amazing writer, and I said, why don't you start writing a blog through your uncovering, not your recovery, because recovery suggests you're sick. And you're not sick. There's nothing wrong with you. You've just been acting out an identity because we haven't uncovered your truth yet. So what is your truth? What is your pain?
What is your pain? And it's that pain that we're covering up, isn't it?
Yes,
that's what we're trying to, that's
avoid.
what we're resisting. That's what we're reaching and spending so much time on social media, and that's probably my worst addiction, as my husband would attest to. But that's and I understand exactly where that's come from and exactly what the pain behind that has been, and it can be all types of addictions. The shopping addiction,
the internet, the everything from, most people think addiction is drugs, alcohol, porn, and drugs, alcohol, porn, and gambling, I think. But it's so much more than that. I remember, I've coached quite a few people with addictive identities, I call them, and because we've all got one, and it's a part of your shadow, my shadow, man down the road shadow, and anyone said that they don't have an addictive identity, watch The Shadow Effect. Because it's absolute rubbish to consider that you don't have one. Some people act it out in comfort eating, gossiping, running people down, having continuous negative thoughts is also that. It's all resistance, right?
All resistance to some pain that you're not prepared to
look at or feel.
Be with.
Yeah. And when we be with the discomfort, and we just own it and experience it. I had an amazing thing yesterday when I downloaded like how we've been talking about I'm enough. I don't know if I've mentioned this. Please tell me if I already have done it on this podcast.
I am the meaning of my life.
Yeah. But when I went through the pain, the resistance of it, I went into the child and went back to the crib when I was ignored for hours upon hours. So I felt like I was meaningless. And when I felt that pain of that little one, and then I came into this massive aha moment that, oh my goodness, I am the meaning of my life, not anybody out there. And I always look at it like this, Mary. The bigger the trauma, bigger the trauma, the higher the mastery. And what I mean by that is just in that moment this morning when I was walking around really integrating I'm the meaning of my life and the workshops that I'm putting together to go around and teach that around Australia. This is probably the most valuable piece to date that I've uncovered because I could not possibly teach with full authenticity to people how to find that they are the meaning of their life unless I felt meaningless. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So what you're saying is unless you have had the shadow experience of feeling unloved or meaningless or worthless or hopeless or any of those things which feel like it's the end of the world.
Yes.
You can't experience the joy of feeling a meaningful life or meaning of your life. You can't experience the joy of feeling true self-worth, not self-worth as in measured by society or anybody else, but your own
true
unique
value. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Core of who you are, which you are the meaning of your life. And just like you were saying to me this morning, how you had a similar breakthrough about
I
that.
did, about being unloved.
Yeah, yeah.
Unloved. Something I guess also part of the resistance that I had around that was I didn't want to blame anybody. So I didn't want to label how I felt as unloved, because I felt like then I was blaming the people in my life that I actually do love, and I know who love me, but nevertheless, that's what I felt.
Yes,
So
because you were projecting as a little baby. We had a shared experience as babies. We were both in an incubator for 3 days, just left there, and
yeah,
so that created a lot of unwantedness and feeling unloved, and that was unconscious. But we must have been so conscious to even be able to feel that as a newborn baby. And the beautiful piece that you described this morning was that. To understand that you were projecting that out into the world all your life until you had this massive meltdown the other day, and you let the resistance fall away, and you went, wow, and then you could own it. And then it's all about, not about out there, it's about, well, you love you, and now you can get on with it.
Yeah. Yes, thank you. It's lovely. And one other thing that pops up around that is also, which came through in a little video clip you shared with me this morning, about being with the pain and how important it is to find somebody who has compassion. If you don't feel that compassion yet for yourself, to sit alone with the pain and explore what you're resisting, find a person that has compassion. In my case, Marianne, I found you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, you have. But that's, and even just that experience of knowing that someone, even the most absurd things you might come up with as you work through what might seem absurd, they might be very real for you, but as you work through a resistance, sharing that with someone that has compassion, is non-judgmental, accepts and is happy to be with you just as you are, that's a bit of gold.
Yeah. And somebody that has worked through their pain and gets it. I still remember going to a few counsellors when I was a lot younger, and they were textbook counsellors from school, never really, wouldn't have a clue about life, and never had a line of coke or taken any drugs or gambled and so they had no clue what even that felt like. And so that distance made you feel judged, made me feel judged, made me feel separate, made me feel this person doesn't get me. So I think there's a lot to be said for people that go out and teach this stuff or coach others when they have this life experience and they live a daily practice and they understand that they're willing and brave and courageous to own their pain, to stand in their truth. And these are the types of people, like ourselves, I think offer that value to others. And so and I want to elaborate a little bit on pain after the break, because it scares people, Mary, to think they've got to go through pain to heal. And I just wanted to talk about how the rewards are so much greater. So we'll be back in one moment.
Beautiful.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. And we're diving right in, aren't we, Marianne?
Yeah, so we're just saying resistance. When you go through resistance, it's an awakening. So, I mean, a few tears, and goodness me, it can feel like, the world's going to end in that moment. But the point is, once you feel it, you heal it, and then the awakening comes. And how would you describe an awakening, Mary?
I know, but I've just been thinking, maybe I'll get to it with this. I've just been, as you spoke, thinking about resistance and how resistance, when a current passes through a resistor, it creates electricity, which is heat. So maybe instead of looking at it in terms of pain, maybe it's heat that we're feeling. And, you know, it can be quite intense, but it doesn't, once the resistance stops, the heat dissipates and
Well,
there's a warm glow. And maybe that's
okay.
awakening. I don't know.
All right. Yeah,
Go with me on this.
I'm not buying it. But what I will add is that you know what it's like when you're getting angry, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this. You're getting really angry as a kid, and then all of a sudden you burst into tears, and once you've had the tears, you're all good. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
You know, you stamp your feet, you blame someone, you have a tantrum, and then you burst into tears, and then you have a hug, and you're all good.
Yeah, I used to be so resistant to the idea of crying that I cried a lot, and
I know I was the
then I
opposite.
was never quite sure when it would stop. So one of the things that helped me with that is that someone said they're just tears, because as you're resisting things, you keep on judging everything that happens, the tears that happen, the uncomfortable feelings, any embarrassment. You resist that as well while you're trying to deal with being unloved. It's good fun, isn't it?
Well,
and I guess what people understand is that this is what happens on the other side of it. You actually can laugh.
Yeah, but the gorgeous part is that it's just it's just about feeling. So
It's just about feeling.
So once we feel,
It's not actually like anybody sticking pins in you. It's actually a feeling that we're actually creating ourselves. The whole idea of resistance, we're doing it ourselves. How funny.
Yeah, that is hilarious. Well, we do everything. It's all about us. It's everything we do.
We create it all.
We do. So, yeah, resistance is funny. You can make resistance hilarious if you have that much awareness. But once you get the aha moment, here's the thing. You exponentially grow, and it's like a rubber. I always explain consciousness, the conscious mind, because we resist is in the unconscious mind. And then once we go there, and we have the courage to go there and feel it and look at it and go, ask, why am I feeling this resistance? What's this about? Then once we get the resistance and we can go through the other side, the breakthrough is always about growing, and we get some new piece like, oh, wow, like, you know, that's why I took cocaine, or that's why I used to behave this way. And then you don't have to behave that way anymore because you know exactly what was driving it, and it's lost power. And also, I always explain consciousness, once it comes into our consciousness, like a rubber band. You know, once you expand it and you pull it, it can never go back to its original size. So, you know, a lot of people say, I'm scared I'll go back to my old habits. Well, no, you won't. Because once you're awake and aware of your behaviour, you have then the ability to manage resistance. So we know now, because we're so practiced, when we're in resistance. And it's like, oh, okay, I'm really getting triggered right now. I'm in resistance. What's that about? And so we just go in and deal with it, right? So that's the beautiful thing once you start a practice like that.
Yeah. Very good. I like the way you put that. The other thing I have considered with understanding resistance, of anybody that does yoga, I discovered a few weeks ago yin yoga. Don't know if you've ever done that, Marianne, but you actually hold a pose for about 5 or 6 minutes, and you just start the pose on the edge of feeling, so it feels slightly uncomfortable. And I tell you, it gets very uncomfortable after 5 minutes of holding certain stretches.
I'm not surprised.
But when I've started doing one pose, I couldn't even I thought, oh, people looking around at the people around me, and how far they could stretch. But by the end of the 5 minutes, I was actually stretching so much further than I realised. And that's what happens when you do this work.
Yeah.
When you cut through the resistance, or hold the resistance, or even and push through the resistance, you can stretch and expand so much further than you thought possible.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, there's a good note to leave it on, I guess, and we can probably come back after the break and give people some tools or questions to ask themselves in order to find their resistance and perhaps break free of it, Mary. What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
Right,
Let's do it.
In one moment. Welcome back, Mary.
Welcome back, Marianne. And we're going to finish off this little podcast with some techniques and solutions, because we're all about solutions.
That's right. So the key, I guess, to recognise when you're in resistance would be when, Mary?
When you're avoiding is a good one. Even the little things, probably not the little things, even, that those times when you don't want to look at your bank account because you've been out and spent far too much money. What's going on with that? What's happening then? What are we avoiding?
Also, when someone triggers you and you go into judgment, or you go into blame, it's a really easy one to know. And I guess the number one thing is to go back to the body. Notice what's happening in your body. And then you know in your resistance, when you start getting those knots in your belly, when you start tightening up, when you
headaches,
feel anger, body ache.
Yeah. When you're feeling overly emotional and trying not to be.
Yeah, covering up.
What's going on then?
Yeah. Or when you're using too much to soothe, like you're making unhealthy choices maybe, or the idea of unhealthy choices, or when you're using your addictive identity to not face what you need to face. So the question
What about if you're feeling really lethargic and really tired and constantly? What would that? That's probably
living in resistance.
That's living in resistance. Indeed, it is.
Fatigue, yeah.
Yeah.
And so all sickness is you're resisting something.
And a question that people could ask themselves.
Yeah, definitely, is clearly, what am I resisting?
What am I resisting?
And how would it look if I didn't resist this? Oh, that's good. How would it look if I didn't resist this? Well, I'd be free, wouldn't I?
That is good. How would it look if I didn't resist this? What would I be doing? Who would I be becoming? Because we often think that we are who we are, and that's it. It's not changeable. It's not malleable.
It's totally malleable. It's totally malleable. Malleable. The brain is malleable.
That's right. And we can choose to be who we want to be. It sounds quite cliche-ish, but who do I want to be? How am I going to be? Am I going to be held back or held in this particular viewpoint of life by all my old patterns of behaviour?
Yeah. So can I throw some spanner in the works there? Aren't people? Would you say that people are resisting life who don't? People are resisting life could be looked at their dream, living their creative best, they're living through being the best creative expression they can be by doing what society has indoctrinated them to do, like go get married, have 2.5 kids, go to work, get a mortgage, buy a house and be in debt all your life, and then go on holidays once a year, and then you can retire and do some travel. Is that living life in resistance, or is that just unaware of the unlimited possibility and the potential that one can live?
It's potentially indoctrinations, I suppose, that is the best way to live your life and the least risk. So there's a lot of fear around doing something different, and there's a lot of safety in doing what seems to be a well-travelled path, but there's not a lot of
Pleasure.
and you have thrown a spanner in the works, because obviously I go, well, I've been resisting life is how I started this whole, and yes, I've been resisting life, so I've got a lot of opportunity for change and different horizons around me, but I've been seeing that and viewing that as not very safe. It's quite risky. Why do I want to do that? And it comes down to, for me, courage. So am I brave enough to be the person I really know I can be? And then what would that mean to the other people around me?
Juicy, Mary, juicy.
Juicy.
So we'll leave it on that note. Maybe next time we could do a podcast about having that courage to step out and live your best creative expression. I don't know, something will come to us, I'm sure. We're both geniuses. Okay.
We are geniuses. Yes. Courage sounds like a good way to finish this off. So let's encourage everybody to be brave.
Yeah. And consider, if I wasn't resisting this part of my life or that part of my life or life, what would I do? Yay. Okay.
Nice. Thanks, Marianne.
Bye.
Bye.